All right, guys, Samsung Galaxy Note 7, one of the fanciest, most anticipated phones of 2016. This is going to be an honest review of this brand new flagship phone from the guys at Samsung. My likes, my dislikes, all the good, bad, and the ugly of this phone. So if you're a fanboy and you can't take a little bit of criticism of your most favorite device, then you might as well stop watching now, because we're going to talk about all the good and all the really bad of this brand new phone from Samsung. All right, guys, so jumping right in, we're going to talk about the specs of the phone, which is something I usually don't talk about, but since Samsung always talks a whole lot about the specs, and it's probably one of the things that make this phone a lot of people like to talk about, we're just going to briefly touch on what they mean and not focus on the actual numbers. 5.7-inch display means it's a big phone, and I'm not really a fan of big phones. I like one-handed phones better. We'll get into that here in a second. It has a Super AMOLED display, which means rich colors, a quad HD display at 518 pixels per inch, which is super high resolution, way higher resolution than, say, like an iPhone. It has a quad-core processor, Snapdragon 820, Exynos, whatever, don't really care. 4 gigs of RAM, which is nice to have. That means it's going to be able to take advantage of that 64-bit architecture, and 64 gigabytes of built-in storage, as well as removable storage. So if you look up here, you can see the removable storage slot as well as your nano SIM slot, which is great. Nice to have. Starting, iPhones still start at 16 gigabytes of internal storage. This has a whopping 64 gigs of internal storage, as well as addable, removable storage here at the top. But we're going to start at the top of that list and go to the size. Again, 5.7 inches. It does wrap around, so you do get the edge sort of wrapping here on the display. Very, very similar to an S7 Edge. I would almost call this phone an S7 Edge on steroids. It's about the same size as an S7 Edge. It doesn't feel a whole lot bigger in your hand, which is nice. It does fit your hand really nicely. Samsung's gone ahead and curved the back of the phone as well right here. And so the phone feels beautiful in your hand. I mean, it's just an amazing phone to look at and an amazing phone to grab. Even though it is large, 5.7 inches, I've actually had a really, really easy time using it. I mean, still, when you're in bed and you're kind of relaxing and you want to one-hand your phone, it's hard because you have to really, really move the phone around in your hand to try and reach all different parts of the screen. And because it's so slippery, it can be prone to being dropped. And we'll jump into that here now. If you go check out my other videos, I've already managed to break the screen of the phone right there. The phone slipped out of my hand when my hand was wet, tumbled about 3 feet to the ground, landed right here on this corner. You can see the little dent. And even though it landed on the metal, it still managed to crack the screen. Pretty annoying for a brand new phone. And in addition to those little the screen break right there, I'm noticing scratches all over the device. If you can look here on the glass, I've got scratches in the glass along the edge. I've got scratches in the glass on the center. I've got scratches in the back down here. So the durability of this phone is really, really in question right now. I mean, I've literally owned this phone for less than a week, and it's got a broken screen and it has scratches on both the front and back of the display. Now, I don't drop, so I've dropped my phone once, but I don't hold my phone with keys. I use my phone in a regular manner. I don't work outside in any kind of industrial construction environment. I mean, I basically work at home and take my phone out when I run errands, and I'm getting all these scratches on it. And so that's kind of a negative in my opinion, a pretty substantial negative. You can also see that the screen does have a little bit of a fingerprint magnet, part of it. I mean, that's going to be mostly any phone these days. So you will have to find yourself wiping your screen off every now and then. But let's get into the beautiful parts of the build. Really, really cool stuff about this body. You do have the S Pen built into the bottom, which you can choose to use or choose not to use. I find that a really, really cool feature. Even though the stylus is sort of geeky, it can be useful for people that take advantage of it, and it does fit really easily into the phone. Again, if you don't want to use it, you don't have to use it. Single-facing downward speaker, which is not that great. I much prefer the front-facing speakers of like an HTC with the boom sound. Do have USB-C, which is great. That's a nice addition over, say, the S7 Edge reversible plug, and everything's going to be moving towards USB-C now as well. Built-in 3.5mm headphone jack. Apple are going to be going away from this, as if the rumors are true, with their new iPhone. Motorola has done away with the 3.5mm headphone jack, so Samsung is kind of, we'll say, sticking with the old here and not removing it. Most people probably like the 3.5mm headphone jack. I certainly do. And so, there's no real reason to get rid of this unless everything's going wireless, in which case that might be a few years from now. In addition to those standard sort of hardware features that you found on every other Note, we do have a retina, excuse me, not retina, an iris scanner here, which you can unlock your phone with your eyes. And you'll find that that actually works pretty well. If I hold the phone up and I look at it, see if we can get it to actually function here. It's not going to work. It's going to use my fingerprint instead. Not really sure how to get it to work, but it does work. And when it does work, it works really, really fast and really, really well. And it's actually really, I end up using the iris unlock faster and more frequently than I use my fingerprint scanner, because it's the fingerprint being down here is a little bit hard to hold on to with the phone. You know, being this big, it kind of tends that you end up having it so that it's a little bit off balance. So I end up using the iris scanner more often. And then just jumping into that, fingerprint scanner is integrated into the home button, works really well, really fast, reads the fingerprints most of the time. We do have a volume rocker here on the left side of the phone, power button here on the right side of the phone. We've already touched on the nano SIM plus removable storage, micro SD at the top. Everything else we've seen, everything else we've talked about. Camera, same camera that's in the Galaxy S7. I believe it's a 12 megapixel camera. Super great quality photos. We'll get into that here in a second. But again, the design, really, really nice, really, really sort of, I would say, classy. You know, it's just very, very sexy, very, very nice to hold on to, but durability might be an issue. Let's jump into the software of the phone. So it's running Android 6, which is Marshmallow. Android 7, like, literally just dropped yesterday. And so, you know, we're playing this game of Samsung being behind with their updates. You know, the Nexus phones are going to be getting their updates first. I would imagine, hopefully, that Motorola gets their updates next, because that's typically how things happen. And Samsung's kind of left somewhere along the realm of getting their updates, but who knows when. So as of right now, if you're buying the Note 7, your software is out of date, and you can blame Samsung and Android for that. But otherwise, the phone feels good. It feels a little bit laggy to me in certain areas. Chrome scrolling is laggy, Twitter scrolling is laggy, so it's kind of an app, you know, problem or an Android problem, you know, but in general, it's a Samsung problem, because Samsung phones, to me, seem to have the most problems with lag. Samsung also has the most problems with bloatware and with duplicate apps. You know, for example, I mean, there's so many duplicate apps and so many bloat apps in here. Like, I don't need all this AT&T junk, you know, and most of it, thankfully, can actually be disabled. If you just drag it here and you go to the application info, you can actually hit disable, and the app will go away. And so, you know, it's not deleted from the phone. You can always go back and re-enable it. But it's annoying to have all this junk and all this crap in here that I don't want. And so some good, some bad with the applications. You know, Samsung also is a fan of including all of its own apps on top of Google apps, like Shelf and Voice right here, which I definitely do not want to use. I'll use Android Health and I'll use Google Now instead of the built-in Samsung apps. Some of these can't be removed, and so you end up actually having duplicate apps. Well, that one can be, but some of them you can't remove, and so they end up staying in your app drawer regardless of whether or not you want to get rid of them. And that's a little bit frustrating. But in general, the phone does feel good. It feels snappy. It's got 4 gigs of RAM, and so things open fast. Multitasking is clean. It doesn't feel old right out of the box. It feels nice. But I am a little bit worried in terms of the overall length and sort of, you could say, how long the phone will feel that way. You know, when new updates come out and the phone gets old and starts getting filled with people's software and data, is it going to stay snappy, or is it going to get really, really bloated and blaggy? That is still to be determined, obviously. We'll get into sort of the S Pen features of the software here. Really, really cool. I mean, for one thing to say is, if you're an artist and you like to draw and you like to doodle, this is probably one of the coolest features. You know, you can definitely, like, you know, make notes. You can definitely, like, take pictures and edit them. You can, you know, so there's a little bit, you can see a little bit of lag there. That just seems a little bit too slow for me. But, you know, you can draw on the screen, you can take notes, you can do lots of cool things. And the stylus is really, really sensitive and really, really good. And it's really, really fun to play around with. Now, I'm definitely not an artist, and so I'm not going to be one to actually use this. But if you're into that kind of stuff, it's great. Another kind of neat thing you can do is you can make GIFs, you can magnify. So the magnification tool is really kind of cool. Like, so example, if we go to, if we go down here, nope, I don't want to share. I want to go away. I'm going to show you something neat about the magnification tool here. If we go to, Backcountry Navigator's little map application here. This is one of the examples where the magnification tool might actually be kind of handy, especially if you're an older person and you have trouble reading the screen. If we go here, right, this is a topo map. We go to magnify. You want to see fine details of sort of the area that you're in, or if you're looking at a certain area on the map, you can see that that's really, really handy to have, and that's at 200%. We can actually upgrade this to 300%. and then see really, really intricate details. So that's kind of cool. The other thing that's neat about the S Pen is you can make GIFs. And so the GIF tool is kind of neat. You can like go to GIF animation, right? And then now we can like do this, and we can go to this camera, and I'll just give you an example of how the GIF thing actually works. So we can see myself here, go to this, go to the Smart Select, make a GIF, go down here. Whoops, it switched cameras on me. Go back down, and then just go right, and then stop, and then you can make a little GIF out of that. So it's kind of a neat tool. Again, is it 100% useful? Probably not. Do people like doing this kind of stuff? Maybe. It kind of depends on the person. It's fun. You don't have to use the stylus, but Samsung does include a lot of neat little tools. Things that are fun and kind of nice to have and fun to play around with. So we'll get around there and get rid of my ugly mug here and turn back to the actual software. In addition to the S Pen, Samsung does include a lot of sort of software tweaks. If you look at sort of this ridiculous menu of convoluted options, they still are including some of the gimmicky things like Smart View, and they have a lot of this like stuff. Samsung is the king of sort of gimmicks and throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks. Always on display is one of them. I've noticed too that the always on display actually has a little bit of screen burn in, so when you actually unlock the phone, the always on display you can see it burn into the AMOLED. So I'm not really sure how good that is. I'm going to turn that off. Do have a blue light filter, which is cool. It changes the color cast of the screen, so if you're kind of ready to go to bed at night, you can turn the blue light filter on, which would maybe hopefully help you sleep better. But again, Samsung, lots and lots of settings, lots and lots of options. Basically, like I said, everything but the kitchen sink in here. You can tweak the phone to your heart's desire. Lots of cool stuff. Samsung's really good about including all these options for people and making the phone as customizable as possible. I prefer a more simple interface, a more, just stuff that works, more similar to a Nexus kind of approach to things. But again, not necessarily a bad thing, just depends on what you want. Some people can use it, some people can ignore it. It all depends on the person. The final thing we'll get into here is the camera. The quality of the camera is really, really awesome. Samsung always talks about having a really great camera in their phones, and they've really gone ahead and made really, really nice quality on this. I'm just going to take a picture here of the outside little view that I got off this porch. And you can see the quality is just really, really great. I mean, the sharpness is great. The color is great. The AMOLED screen is great. I mean, the detail is really, really awesome. The resolution and the sharpness is really good. Everything about the camera on this phone is really, really fantastic. The selfie camera is nice. Has a lot of neat little features where you can like raise your hand and go like this and it'll take a picture. And the speed of the camera is really great to have. And, just if you're buying the phone for the camera, you won't be disappointed, put it that way. And if you're looking for a phone with a great camera, definitely check this phone out because it ends up being a really, really nice feature to have on a top of the line phone. So what are my final thoughts on this guy? Well, first of all, you have to really, really like Samsung and really, really be a Samsung fanboy, I think, to go and buy this device. And that is for two primary reasons. Number one reason of that is the size of the phone and the price of the phone. The size of the phone, what I mean by that is this is a big phone. Don't kid yourself. Apple makes basically two of the same phones in two different sizes. I mean, somebody could argue that the camera in the iPhone 6 Plus is better, or 6S Plus is better. And, that is kind of true with the Note and the Galaxy S7 Edge. The Note does include the stylus, but you're getting a lot more. Oh, and I left out waterproofing. You're getting a lot more in the Galaxy Note than you are in the S7 Edge, but it comes at a price premium. I mean, you're paying $800+ for this device unlocked, which is a lot. And you have to really, really want to own this phone for that much money. I mean, there's so many good alternatives that are lower cost. The Hawaii P9, the Nexus 6P, the LG G5. The list goes on and on and on. Don't get me wrong, Samsung makes a great phone, but you have to really, really want this phone for the amount of money that you're going to spend on the device. I think that the durability is of some concern to me here. I don't want a phone that's going to have to be scratched up. A lot of the fanboys will say, oh, we'll just put a case on it. Well, no, I don't want to put a case on it. I mean, it's a beautifully designed phone. Why should I have to put a case on it? Why do I want to have the phone be covered up just so it can protect it. The phone should be able to last. I mean, this is like supposed to be Gorilla Glass, 13 or whatever, and it hasn't lasted literally a week before being cracked and scratched. Super, super disappointing. So, my sort of final thoughts about this phone is I'd like to compare it to sort of a high priced hooker. It's really nice to look at, it's even sexier to hold on to, but at the heart of it all, it really lacks a soul. It's just a flashy, fancy device that doesn't really appeal to me on a sort of core level. I end up feeling hollow when I play with this phone. I do like it, but it's just not the phone for me. It's too expensive. It has too many sort of problems with the build. It's lacking the updates that I really, really crave. And it's very, very expensive. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this little honest review here of the Samsung Galaxy Note 7. Don't forget to check out everything else I have on YouTube and rate, comment, and subscribe. Thanks.